Hello guys, thank you for tuning into this video here. In this video here we will be taking a look at the new Philips X-tremeUltinon LED bulbs. These are the second generation, and in this video I will talk about the H4 bulb. But of course it's the same kind of technology, so you will probably see the same results somewhat in the H7 and other sockets that we will be finding from the test results in this bulb. So this bulb here is like the top of the line LED bulb that comes from Philips. They say that it will be up to 250% brighter. So by 250% they mean that it gives up to 250% more light compared to the lowest approved halogen bulb by the ECE regulations in Europe. And it's a 5800 Kelvin bulb, which means it's almost pure white. And of course they also state on the box here that it's not ECE R37 approved, so you can't use it on public roads. Taking a look at the bulb itself, I would say it seems like a really nice construction, and it's up in the higher market or the higher quality range, and it's probably been made out of aluminium. And the cool thing about this one, I think that stands really out to me, is that they have printed the Philips logo in the front. So if you're using a clear headlight and you don't have a glare shield, you will see the logo. It's just something cool to separate you from the rest of the users, but it doesn't really have any other benefits than that. But the top cap there also prevents light glare shining directly out, so it also have the same benefit or the same use that you find in the halogen bulb. You have that coating on top to also stop the lighting coming out of the bulb. And I see some bulbs, they don't have that. That is going to give the oncoming drivers more glare, so you need this in a H4 bulb. The only bulb that you will don't really need that top thing is if you are having them in projectors. It's not a benefit to have it. Then we have a reflector cup on both sides of the lamp to mimic the original halogen bulb. And also, if you take a look at the construction itself and the housing between the LEDs, we can see it's really thin, which is good for beam pattern. As close as you can make the LEDs come together, it's going to mimic the halogen tungsten coil even more, and you are going to have a good beam pattern, because you don't want to have the LEDs too spread out from each other, because that is going to give a worse beam pattern. And it's even more important if you're putting this LED bulb in a tighter reflector, then the tolerances there are smaller. So this is probably going to give the same beam pattern in a MC headlight as in a car headlight. And in this bulb they have achieved that by having a really thin copper board. It's dual-sided. Some other manufacturers, they actually use single-sided, which is a benefit, but here they have used two really thin copper boards on each side, and then you have the construction of the aluminium in between, so it's like a sandwich. And they made it real thin, which is good, but I think it would be better if it was in one whole like copper board instead of separated. It will probably make for some better thermal management and to get the heat away from the LEDs. And then we see a standard H4 socket made out of aluminium. This one fits really well because it's the exact same size as the halogen bulbs use, but it can also make, if you have an older headlight, it can maybe make the headlight a little bit more wiggly, because this here actually is a lot heavier, or it can put more strain on the springs holding bulbs in. So if you were to have a little bit thicker of this plate here, that would have the spring tighter and it will not wiggle around too much, but it shouldn't really make a problem if the headlight is in good condition. And then they have made a really controversial cooling decision, in my opinion. It's fanless, and a fanless design, it works well if you have some moving air around it, but if you have the headlight behind plastic cover inside the headlight because you want to seal it up, there's not going to be any moving air around it, and this here will get really hot, as I will show you later. Then we have a really thick wire coming out of the bulb with a grommet in the bottom there, preventing moisture and water from getting into the bulb, and also taking some of the restraint out when this really thick wire is coming out of it. I really don't understand why they have picked such a big wire for this bulb. It's not like this takes too much power. And also the connector between the ballast, not the ballast, but the driver and the LED bulb is really huge, and in my opinion, I really don't see the reason why they made it this big. Of course, if you are not going to have it all tucked away in a headlight, this is not a problem, but many will maybe want to have it in a headlight and between the covers and such, and will make it real hard to get it all in there, because you have a really long wires, really big connectors, really thick wires, and also a fairly big driver as well. And the driver seems to be out of really good quality, probably aluminium. Also you have those mounting brackets things on the top that you can put some zip ties through, and this bulb here is powered at 12 volts. You can't use it at 24 volts, so it's not like this power unit or driver is like got some switching, so you can use both of them. I'm not sure why a good company like Philips could not do that, but probably not a lot of cars or trucks use. Maybe some trucks use H4, I don't know. But it's when I have measured it, it's really 22 watts at the start, and then it gradually goes down to maybe 21 watt when it gets hot, and then just the power end at the end there, which is a standard H4 connector, but they made it in this round style to save some space. But when looking at the overall configuration and size of the bulb, that would absolutely not be necessary, because all of the other components are really big. So why save some space there? I don't know. So since it does not have any active cooling, we can see that when the bulb is sitting in still air, the temperature will rise really fast, and the temperature will go up to 140 degrees in room temperature, around 20 degrees. And the good thing is that this is a automotive grade LED, and it also can take some heat, but in my opinion it's not a good idea to have a LED running at this kind of temperature. And my readings, of course, it can't be measured right under the LEDs as well, because I don't really have those FLIR cameras and such, so I can check the temperature, but I can make the closest I can find to the junction temperature right beside the LED. And but the good thing about those big cooling fans on the back, if you blow on them, you can really see that the temperatures go fast down. So they work, but if you are planning on having these lights a place where there's not moving air, I think this is going to be an issue. Another really big issue is the LED they have chosen to use in this bulb. Previously on cheaper bulbs and such, there was a big problem that, of course, they used really big LEDs that didn't have the same pattern and overall size as the halogen coil, so you wouldn't get the beam intensity and also not the right beam pattern. But in this case they have really used a super small LED, which is bright for its size, but the problem is that it's half of the size of the halogen coil. So when we will be looking at the beam patterns later, I feel that we are missing a lot of light in like half of the side in the beam pattern, and I think that is because of the shows or the LED that they choose to put on this LED bulb. I have no idea why they have done this. You can get bigger LEDs in the same series, but for some reason they went this way, so I think that was a really big mistake. And these bulbs are designed, they say, in Germany, but they are manufactured in China, so maybe there was just a Chinese product and Philips put their name on them. I don't really know. So I would say the beam pattern is good, but it's far from great. When first looking at the LED from Philips, we can see that you got a nice white light and not too much glare, but we can see that the width of the light is not too big. You can see the beam pattern is fairly narrow and you don't have too much spread on it, but you get a nice hot spot in the middle, and I feel a lot of the power is sent to that hot spot in the middle. And I also think that you lose some light on the right side in the beam pattern. And in this light that I used here, it was like a Honda something H4 headlight, but I was testing in a motorcycle headlight and it was much more noticeable, and I think that is because of the LED that we talked about earlier, that it's just half the size and therefore it lacks some light in some certain areas in the beam pattern. But we can see that it's much narrower and much tighter beam pattern, and if we switch to the halogen, we can see that the halogen is much more spread out and also less light glare. We can really see that there's much of a gradual turn in the middle there, where it's supposed to, I believe it was 15 degrees where the light should turn upwards. The LED from Philips is not perfect there either, but the beam pattern overall is good, but it's far from perfect in my opinion. So in the previous image you saw all of those black dots, and in all of those black dots I have measured with a lux meter and made this graph, and we can see with the halogen bulb the graph is fairly even, and the reason for that is because the halogen bulb puts out an even beam pattern and spreads it out really good. And when we look at the start of the curves, I have measured the points from left to right. We can see that the LED is not as bright as the halogen, and that has something to do with the LED bulb have a tighter beam pattern. But then we can gradually see that the LED gets stronger, and in the hot spot where you have the highest readings is where the LED really focuses all of the light, and we can see that you get a much brighter hotspot, which is going to give you a longer light range. But it also means that we can really see that the LED bulb here puts out most of the power in the middle. And if I were to have more points measured in the hotspot, of course we would see a bigger difference as well, with more points where the LED is outshining the halogen. But it's not how this test is done. And then we can see that the LED is brighter in some points, but on the right side the difference between the LED and halogen is bigger, and we can see that the LED is somewhat less bright, and I think this have to do with the LED being half the size. So mixed opinion, as I talked about earlier. The beam pattern is not perfect. Of course it's bright, and maybe this curve here doesn't make it justice for the LED, but it also tells something about the narrow beam pattern that we can see. But we also see that the Philips bulb is much brighter in the middle